Hello and welcome to this IsleVote21 meeting for the Isle of Wight County Council seat of Cowes West and Gurnard. A brief word for the benefit of the public. IsleVote21 has been formed with the sole purpose of enhancing democracy by providing an unbiased platform for candidates. We have no affiliations or funding, and no candidates are aware of what questions will be asked today, although a list of topics was distributed in advance to enable candidates to prepare. All 138 candidates in this year's election have been invited either directly or via group and party leaders. The following candidates were invited to attend this evening's meeting: Josh Pointing of the Labour Party, Tim Jeffries of the Conservative Party, and Paul Fuller. And we have Paul Fuller in attendance with us today. Paul, thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to... I really appreciate you taking part in our exercise in engaging our voters more and helping them to be more informed when it comes to turning up at the ballot box. So it's a real privilege to have you this evening. Are you standing as an independent?
Yeah, I've been an independent now for half my life. So yes.
Okay, great. And so what I'm going to do this evening is ask you some questions from the pool of questions, plus some that were submitted by the public regarding local issues. And for all of our candidates, we have a 2-minute rule for responses. So I will wave my hand when we're close to the cutoff time for those 2 minutes. But before we start questions, I'd like to give you a couple minutes first to kick us off with a personal statement.
Right, okay, I'm Paul Fuller. I've been a councillor now since 1995. And I've been a councillor for Cowes West and Gurnard since 2009. Between that time, I've been a councillor for Ryde North East, and as an independent, my unique selling point, if you like, is to put the needs of my community before any party politics. So I'm here to put my community first.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Paul. Okay, so what we'll do is dive into some questions to get more of a feel for your thoughts and plans. My first question for you, and for all candidates, what I'm doing is asking the question twice, just to kind of help us mull it over as we go. So our first question is, do you have any specific projects in mind that you would like to pursue in the council? Any specific projects in mind that you would like to pursue in the council?
Okay, I think, what is quite important to me is about communication, transparency and openness. And one of the things I would like to see happen, and we've lost sort of like track of this in the last few years, is about being open with our community. I think the Isle of Wight Council and councillors, I think as soon as they can get elected, they go off, do their own thing, and you never hear anything more of them. What is important to me is that we put the needs of our community first. I've already mentioned that, but again, it's about being open and transparent and making sure that people know what we're doing as councillors. A lot of the time, and in a lot of areas, you get councillors and people won't know what their councillors are doing. And for me, it's really important to make sure that people are aware of what we're doing, the roles that we're performing, the challenges that we've got, and some of the fights that we're having on their behalf. And it's important that we spread the news to everybody that we represent. So that to me is really, really important. I think in the last couple of years, we've seen decisions being made following consultation, and some of those times you don't hear that councillors are actually listening to people, and I think it's important that we properly do engage with our wider community. I know I've said that probably about 3 or 4 times now within that statement, but it's important to me.
I think it's important to so many of us to facilitate open communication, certainly. Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on to the next question. We cannot escape the fact that services cost money and budgets are severely constrained. Can you describe ways to close the gaps between income and expenditure? How can we close gaps between income and expenditure?
I think it's it's a toughie, that one. I think, you know, what one of the problems that we have on the island is that we don't receive enough income. And one of the issues with not receiving enough income is that we need to be recognised as an island. You know, we've had promises from successive governments. I'm not going to blame any single government here, but we've had support. We've had a response from government that we're going to get funding in the future, but it never materialises. And I think if we were properly funded by government, and for government to recognise some of the challenges that we have being an island community, I think that would probably go some way to addressing some of the issues that we've got. Because otherwise, what we see year after year after year is our council tax increasing to support the fact that we are an island community, and we need to pay probably more than communities do in the immediate mainland. You know, I know there are some similarities with rural communities elsewhere, but I think that it is so important that we are properly understood that we are an island community, and we have extra challenges because of that, and we need to have more support from government to support our community.
Certainly, yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. Thank you. Looking at the island, which has pockets of significant deprivation, what steps could be made here to enhance and develop opportunities in those areas?
Again, I think every community is different. You know, it's about providing regeneration packages for those communities that really need it. But also one of the important things that certainly we feel, you know, and being part of the independent group, is that, you know, where people are working, those people need to be supported in the work that they take. Last year we saw funding being taken from working families that through council tax initiatives, and you know, we need to support those people, those hardworking families that are really finding it difficult at the moment. You know, we've got families going to using the food bank and things like that, and when you talk to people about poverty, we need to be able to support people in poverty and try to lift them out of poverty to ensure that they are properly supported as their communities. You know, there's lots of other things that we can do as well. You know, regeneration of town centres, offering cheap parking to allow people to work locally in their town centres rather than going to supermarkets. Those kind of initiatives are things that councillors can do a lot more to support.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Paul. Okay, we have some questions from the public now. That we invited an access to a Survey Monkey, and we invited residents across the island to join in with some questions. Here we received several questions related to special educational needs and autistic children, and how much parents struggle with provision for them. If elected, what will you do to champion the rights of those children?
I think, you know, every single family that has autistic children is individual. Their individual needs need to be properly identified, and it's about talking to those families about what their individual needs are. You know, understanding the schools. You know, a lot of the school system work with autistic children in separate ways, and it's not about treating everybody as labelling autistic children. It's about talking to the individuals and finding out what their individual needs are, and as councillors supporting those individual needs and talking to the education providers to make sure that those children are properly dealt with in the right way in the schooling system that we have. So it's not having a blanket sort of like policy about it. It's about looking at individuals and supporting the individuals getting the right support that they need.
So again, about that open communication between us all.
Absolutely, that's what it's all about. You know, having a policy is one thing, but it's about making sure that the individuals are supported.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have a question about adult education. Adult education on the island is limited. What would you do to encourage organisations on the island to provide opportunities in this area?
Again, it's knowing what is required out there. What do adults require from the purpose of adult education? I know that organisations like Learning Links have been doing things historically, but it's knowing what is available out there and how can that be improved. And you know, there are voluntary organisations that are working out there for adult education, and it's tapping into having that conversation, finding out what is required, and actually talking to the council to make sure that there is more available to support those people that need the support out there. Why do they need the support, and how can we access that, and how can we tap into the funding that is available to make sure that that education out there is not only just fit for purpose, but actually supporting those people that require it.
Great, thank you. Fantastic.
My answers aren't too lengthy, and you know, I know that as politicians we have a tendency to waffle quite a lot, and if I waffle, please let me know. Please rein me in.
All right, I appreciate that, Paul. No, it's really great to have your answers on this diverse range of questions that we've been asked by the public as well. So thank you for giving it your consideration. Moving on to a topic that we again have received lots of requests around is the question of housing. There is a need for homes on the island to address a shortage of housing that matches the local situation, especially for those looking to rent. But an environmental cost comes with every new house built in terms of losing green space and the required infrastructure. How should the council, within the bounds of its powers, seek to create more homes for islanders whilst balancing the environmental costs of more building? That's a lengthy question. So yeah. I'm going to summarize the final bit for you again, which is, how should the council, within the bounds of its powers, seek to create more homes for islanders whilst balancing the environmental costs of more building?
Very, very good question. You know, one of the issues that we have at the moment, and I think that we are struggling with, is that government is looking to increase housing on the island by 1,045 new homes a year. That's going to have a huge impact upon our environment, and I think that is far too many. You know, we need to make sure that the infrastructure is there to be able to support those new homes. You know, locally we're very, very lucky in Gurnard in that we have a Gurnard neighbourhood plan. And, you know, one of the things that is so important to the community, within the community that we've had, is that we make sure that that local housing is for local people. One of the problems that there is, particularly within my community, is that developers will come along and they want to have the best return on the investment that they put into their housing. And when you do that, you don't actually always look at people that need affordable housing. And, you know, I think one of the shortfalls that we have on the island, and I think that people of all political parties would share that, is the real loss of social housing. You know, we don't really build social housing anymore, and we find that the people that are going into social housing, and we're talking about housing that includes things like holiday homes, caravan parks, the housing that is being provided is substandard. You know, I think one of the other things that we also need to do as well is we need to invest in the poor housing that we have on the island. You know, there's so many people on the island that is in fuel poverty. How do we actually square that circle, if you want? How do we lift people out of fuel poverty to make sure that they are properly looked after? You know, it's about also providing support for the people in the infrastructure that they currently are, as well as, you know, what you can provide within planning, and to make sure that, you know, what is ideal for me is to make sure that the housing that we do develop on the island is for local people, is at low cost, and actually caters for people that are local families needing to move on up. one of the other issues as well is for older people as well, trying to allow the ability for older people to downsize and to be able to move into homes that are right for them. More 1 and 2 bedroomed houses. We need much more of those on the island within our communities.
Yeah, my goodness, it's such a hot topic for all of us. It's something that we are all, as islanders, considering a lot. You've raised lots of really relevant points there as well. Thank you. Okay, I would like to move on to some questions specifically about the Cowes area as well from people who have asked us questions. Traffic between Cowes and Newport can quickly become nose to tail if there is any sort of incident, either an accident or roadworks. Any further building development will add to this problem. How would you prevent traffic from becoming worse and, if possible, improve the current flow?
Again, I think when you look at the amount of housing that we have, particularly in the Cowes area, there doesn't seem to be the money going into alleviating the traffic flows on the Cowes to Newport corridor. It's a difficult nut to crack. A lot of people are working from home now, and I think that needs to be encouraged as well. And how we deal with the digital economy is one way around that. But again, people need to ensure that public transport out there is as convenient as a private car, and that needs sort of like national legislation to be able to do that. I quite welcome some of the messages that's coming through from government at the moment about trying to encourage people to walk, to cycle more, and to embrace sort of like other forms of transport rather than the private car. What more can we, I think there's probably plenty that we can do about car sharing and encouraging people to travel to work at the same time. I don't travel by car, but one of the things that I do see when I'm waiting for getting to Newport is the single vehicles with one passenger, and that being their driver. So again, it's about having that conversation and making sure that people are aware of their being part of the problem rather than being part of the solution as well. And car sharing is so important as well. So again, it's about having that conversation and waking up to that factor and doing more on, particularly on that Cowes to Newport corridor. There are huge issues, coming into Cowes today. People are waiting for a long time to be able to get onto that road. And, we know that there has been improvements on that, on the St Mary's roundabout, but again, it doesn't seem to always resolve the problem.
Thank you, Mohol. Yeah, you've raised lots of interweaving factors into that kind of traffic challenge in the Cowes to Newport run.
Well, I'm limited to 5 minutes, so it's trying to embellish everything that we can in that very, very short period of time.
Yeah, I appreciate that, with our strict time rules. And with that in mind, I'd like to give you an open-ended question specifically to the things that are on your heart related to your local community. So knowing your local community as you do, what local issue would you like to address that you know is of concern to residents?
One of the biggies that we've got at the moment is certainly the seafront car parking charges. Again, there is a huge amount of concern about this. We've worked, I've been working for the last 15 months on some of this, and some of the arguments that residents have put forward have been quite strong. And it's about talking to the council about this. If people are responding to a consultation, and we had 450 people responding by email to proposals by the Isle of Wight Council to put in car parking charges along the seafront. People need to feel that they're being listened to, and if they're being listened to, they need to be, their views need to be enacted upon. And I think that is one of the things that certainly a lot of people have concerns with in the Cowes area at the moment. It's been the one single issue for the last year that sort of like kept me awake at night. Responding to people's emails and trying to help and support them. And it's one thing that needs desperately to be scrapped locally. How can you have parking meters that have a finite life when the 21 days of the year they're underwater, they're submerged, they're open to corrosion by the elements. So again, it's just the madness of having those conversations with the council, and we really want to see those meters scrapped. It's still in the forefront of people's minds, and the fight carries on.
Okay, thank you. Yes, certainly a local issue. I really appreciate your time this evening, Paul, and answering the wide variety of questions, and particularly being, a kind of one-on-one. I appreciate you giving it your consideration. And before we close tonight, I would like to give you an opportunity to make a closing statement or any reflections on this evening's process. Over to you.
You've been absolutely fab, Bryony, and it's great to be able to engage with people. This is, things are fluid. Although I've spoken about some of the local issues that are so present at the moment, being a councillor is actually working with people on a day-to-day basis. Every single day it's about listening to people, engaging with people, and trying to resolve people's problems. And that is one of the things, one of the skills I hope that I've sort of like been able to adapt to in the last few years. And again, if I am privileged to be re-elected, it's a matter of carrying on fighting, listening to people, and fighting the council for those services that people need, deserve, and they've paid into. And I want to carry on doing that for the next 4 years, and hopefully I will do everything that I can to help and support my community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul Fuller, for joining us this evening. Very much appreciated. Thank you for taking part.
And thank you for having me, as always. You're a star. Thank you.